Greetings all. Let's bow our heads, offer up a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Yahweh, as we come before you today, we'd like to thank you for all your blessings, what we see and what we cannot see. We'd also ask a blessing on those that need to be touched by you as only you can give. And Father, we just thank you for everything. We ask that the words spoke here today are yours and the people can understand. And all these things we ask are your Son. We ask you in the Messiah's name. Hallelujah. Okay, wait before. Okay, you know, if you go to court, you wait for the judge to be introduced before you sit down. So we're going to introduce this judge to you today. I'm going to use his writings to introduce him to you. I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. That is your judge. You shall have no other Elohims before me. Okay, sit down. Bring it up here, Zach. Here, sit over here. Sit over here. Okay, I told Laura she had children's classes today that she wouldn't have it, so send children up here. They're going to come up here and find you a place to sit down here. Send all the little ones up that want to go to children's class and find you a place to sit down on the floor. Elder George asked me yesterday what I was going to talk on today. I told him I was going to expose some false teaching that's been going on in a lot of the organizations. He thought that was pretty gutsy. It'll be my first time up here. Told me to be careful. There was a couple sharpers out there that was looking for me. Told George I had 2 words for him: not worried. Okay, what I didn't tell him was I'm going to use the writings of these organizations to prove my point. He also told me that my mother was kind of worried. I asked him, why would she be worried? He said, she's worried you're going to talk about the government. I told George she does know me pretty good because that is my open line. And then I told my mother, I asked her if she was worried. She didn't know if she'd be worried or not. So I told her, you know, you are responsible for my training. So it will reflect your teachings. So anyway, like I said, today I'm going to talk about the government. And I want to talk about governments that control the earth. So you're going to hear words like the Masons, some of the presidents. We'll talk about the Illuminati, Napoleon, paganism. We might even talk about the Constitution, Alexander the Great. If you listen, you'll hear these words. Now, the government I'm going to talk about first was before man. There was one that was established before man. And we turn to Genesis 1:14. We'll find this one. Genesis 1:14. Elohim said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day and the night. Let them be signs, and for the season, and for the days, and for the years. And let there be lights in the expanse of the heaven to give light on the earth, and it was so. And Elohim made 2 great lights, the greater light to govern the day, the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. And he placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth and to govern the day and the night and to separate the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. Okay. All right, there's the 2 lights right there. This was set up before man was even set up. As I wrote up here, you see it says that Elohim saw it was good. when Elohim speaks, it is law. Okay, so that does become law. And we know by how we keep a day that day actually starts at sundown. We also know that new moons start the month, and that Abib starts the year. This is a calendar given to Israel. This is not given to the pagans. This is given to the ones that want to follow Yahweh. The ones that do not, they have their own calendar. Unfortunately, that is the calendar that a lot use in this room. That's the calendar being taught. That is not Elohim's calendar. This is it right here. This is how you govern when a day starts and when it ends. These are two witnesses up here that agree with what Elohim said. Whenever Elohim set up his calendar, he also gave another list of rules of what we would do in the sacred times that he wanted to set aside for you. And there they are there. In Leviticus 23, you can find them all. He says in the first month, on the 14th day, that's the Passover. On the first month, the 15th to the 21st day, will be the Feast of Unleavened Bread. 50 days for the count of the Sabbath will be Pentecost. On the 7th month of the first day, this will be trumpets. 7th month, on the 10th day, is the Day of Atonement. On the 7th month, the 15th day through the 21st, is the Feast of Tabernacles. On the 7th month, the 22nd day, is the last great day. This is a calendar that he gave you to observe. If you notice, there are 7 times on here. 7 is the number of completeness and perfection in the Hebrew. To add to this or take away from it will be to add to his calendar or to take away from his calendar. And Deuteronomy, I believe it's chapter 4, we'll find some instructions about what Elohim says. Deuteronomy 4:2 says, "You shall not add to the word which I am commanding you, nor shall you take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim, which I commanded you." Now, this is Moses talking to Israel after he has brought them out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery that I talked about, mentioned earlier. Okay, now I know most in this room know these. I've kept them with most of you, if not all of you. And this is a calendar. And I took a quote from Will Rogers, and the quote he had was, it says, "Even if you're on the right track, you'll still get run over if you just sit there." Okay, so being on the right track is not always where you need to be. Now, this foundation here, all right, I use this as an illustration to show you a solid foundation. This is a foundation that was set up by Yahweh, and it is to be observed. I want to show you what kind of foundation we have here. This is a pyramid at Giza. This is not any pyramid. It is a great pyramid. And if you've ever studied it or looked at it, what you'll find is it's the largest building ever designed. There's not one bigger anywhere on the face of the planet. If you read and study it, a lot of people will tell you that the odds on putting this pyramid on a planet is real thin. They said it would be easier to design a planet for the pyramid than to take this pyramid and set it on a planet, because just along the weight and size of it. Like I say, it's the largest building ever designed on the face of the earth. The base alone is 13.6 acres. That's how large the building is. 6.18 million tons. There's a lot of weight there. The sides are 756 feet long, and the height of it is 454 feet high. That's some math. The pyramid has been standing for thousands of years. It's the only one of the ancient wonders that has always been an ancient wonder and still is. The other 6 have come and gone through time. This one still stands. Okay. Now we're going to go to where false doctrine comes from. In Genesis 10:8, if you want to turn over there, we read, "Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yahweh, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, mighty hunter before Yahweh. Now in the companion Bible, if you carry it, in Appendix 28, it has a little section on Nimrod, and it's taken from Josephus' writings, and I'm going to read that to you. It says, Nimrod persuaded mankind not to ascribe to their happiness and Yahweh, but to think that his own excellency was the source of it, and he soon changed things into a tonnery, thinking there was no other way to wean men from the fear of Elohim. Okay, think there was no other way to wean man from the fear of Elohim than by making them rely on his own power. The Targum of Jonathan says, for the foundation of the world, none was ever found. Thank you. The Targum of Jonathan says, from the foundation of the world, none was ever found like Nimrod, powerful in hunting and in rebellion against Yahweh. The Jerusalem Targum says he was powerful in hunting and wickedness before Yahweh. For he was a hunter of the sons of men, and he said to them, depart from the judgment of Yahweh, and adhere to the judgment of Nimrod. Therefore it said, as Nimrod is a strong one in hunting and wickedness before Yahweh. The Chaldea paraphrase of 1 Chronicles 1:10 says, Nimrod begot Cush, who began to prevail in wickedness, for he shed innocent blood and rebelled against Yahweh. Nimrod was the founder of Babylon, which partook of his character as being a great antagonist of Yahweh's truth and of Yahweh's people. We cannot fail to see in Nimrod Satan's first attempt to raise up a human universal ruler among men. There have been many attempts, such as Nebuchadnezzar, Alexander the Great, Napoleon, and others. He will finally succeed in the person of the anti-Messiah. Right, Nimrod is the founder of the ancient Babylonian mystery religion. He founded it in rebellion against Yahweh. Basically, what he said Yahweh says we will do, we will not do. Anything he says do, we don't want nothing to do. You will worship me. In the Hyssop's Book 2 Babylons, we read in there that it says it was inscribed on an Egyptian monument that Nimrod, the one the Egyptians call Osiris, was the husband of the mother. Okay, this is Nimrod in Babylon, same man. He married his mother. He had children with her. He sent those children out to set up his empire also throughout the world. Whenever I went to the dictionary, to the internet, to find what it had to offer on Nimrod, Elder Tom has a 1911 encyclopedias up there in the office, and I wanted to use those. Those are supposedly one of the better sets you can own and have. But it was amazing that everywhere I went, on all the papers that I photocopied in there, Nimrod's name is the only place I found Yahweh's name printed. It's not printed Lord, it's not printed God, it's printed Yahweh, just like we use it and write it ourselves. Here's what the encyclopedia had to say. It said Nimrod is mentioned in the 3 passages of the Bible, which we just went over 2 of them there in Genesis and Chronicle, and then there's another mention in Micah 5:6. It says the mention in 5:6 is ascribed to one of the oldest writers of the law, the Yahwist. Okay. In Genesis 10:8, Nimrod was a warrior, the first hunter. He became a mighty hunter before Yahweh, the first builders of cities and of rulers of widespread domain. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and out of that land he went forth to Assyria and built Nineveh. Okay. The mighty hunter before Yahweh has been variously explained as a divinely great hunter, a hunter in defiance of Yahweh, a hunter with the help or of some deity's name who has been replaced by Yahweh. It says the story of Nimrod is sometimes conjectured to be of Egyptian origin. All right, I wrote down a verse here, and we've got a couple we'll go look at here. That's Matthew 4:8-10. All right, starting in verse 8. It says, the devil took him up on a high mountain and displayed before him all the kingdoms of the world, their majesty, and promising, all of these I will bestow upon you if you will prostrate yourself in homage before me. At this, Yahshua said to him, "Away with you, Satan. Scripture has it written, you shall do homage to Yahweh your Elohim. Him alone shall you stand and adore." We can also find this story over in Luke 4, verse 3. All right, children. Hey, try and pay attention. You're supposed to be watching me. Yeah. All right, let's go. We got Luke chapter 4, verse 3. It says, Satan come to him. "If you are the son of Elohim, command this stone to turn into bread." Yahshua answered and said, "Scripture has written, not on bread alone shall man live." Satan took him to the higher and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a single instant. He said to him, "I will give you all the power and the glory of these kingdoms. The power has been given to me, and I give it to whoever I wish. Prostrate yourself in homage before me, and it shall be yours." In reply, Yahshua said to him, "Scripture has it, you shall do homage to Yahweh your Elohim. Him alone shall you adore." And Satan left him to Jerusalem, set him on a parapet of the temple, and said to him, "If you are the son of Elohim, throw yourself down from here, for Scripture has it, he will bind his angels to watch over you, and again, with their hands they will support you, that you may never stumble on the stone." And Yahshua answered him again and said, "It also says, you shall not put Yahweh your Elohim to the test." When the devil had finished all his tempting, he left him to wait for another opportunity. The reason why Satan could offer Yahshua all of the kingdoms of the world in an instant like that is because they were all his. They followed this teaching of Nimrod. We will have nothing to do with Elohim. We will do the way we want to do. Now, all through the history of Egypt, if you look, Yahweh told them to come out, be a separate people, even when he brought them out. They weren't supposed to learn the way of the heathens. This was a problem all through history. The reason why I told you I was introducing the judge today, if you take this book right here, it's nothing more than cases that have come before judgment. That's what's in here. There's more bad ones than good ones. The people want to do things their way, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're not following Yahweh, you are following Nimrod. He has set up the kingdoms. He owns them still today. Nothing has changed there. Now, Leviticus 18, 1 through 3, you don't have to turn there. I'll read what I wrote down here. I took this out of the NIV version, but what I've got wrote down here is it said, "You must not do as they did in Egypt. You must not do as they did in Canaan." We know that when Moses led children of Israel out of Egypt, they went into the promised land. They were going into a land that was really worse than what they were leaving. So they were given these instructions. Do not do their way. Do not follow their practices. Also, off that mic, boy. You hear me? Matthew, you hear me? Stay off of it. When I went to the internet under Nimrod, I pulled up several documents here, and most of them don't even have his name, and they just show a relationship to him. It says, in the Western societies, we see the symbolisms of the past on our banks, our government structures with pillars and porches having a pyramidal top. Now, the lesser nations are subservient to the leader nations who dominate using the world banks, the IMFs, and other global financial institutions and the question is, why are many of our banks and other buildings of importance constructed with the porches and the fronts of them consisting mostly of large white pillars? Even the seat of the American power and wisdom is represented by pillars. The obelisk, Abraham Lincoln Memorial, America's Halls of Justice, both federal and county, have the same features on the exteriors. They all have the Doric fluted style columns, which are purely Egypt designed and were used in Egypt 2,000 years before Greece ever used them. It says, I'm sure I'm not going to pronounce this right, but the Ugarit tablets made Babel, that is Nimrod, chief of the Canaanites. Remember, Canaan was cursed by Noah in Genesis 9:25, and therefore the whole system of pagan deities was cursed. The Western world system of government, economical power, and spiritual power was started by Nimrod, who being defied became Satan's symbol, a curse in the earth that still exists today. This document was put on there by Eugene Weber of UCLA, where he traces the start of the Western civilization back to Nimrod. He also has the Babylonian system, the Grecian Empire, and the Roman Empire, and finally he moved to the West and established the system also. Now this one was on the questions in history. I guess it's a book. I've got chapter 8 here. There's a little bit in it. The title is Egypt, Sun Worship, and Metha. It says, as has been shown, sun worship has its roots back to Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, even long before that. It said, for Noah's time, there was such a cult responsible for the pre-flood evil and prepared the world for the destruction of the great flood. And we all know that story. So this is not difficult to understand when you see how sun worship has always been central in religious themes, with the sun of the sun god predominating in all religious cultures, that is, except Israel. But they also eventually gave in to the ones that had Yahweh's name, who he told, you do not go out and seek other Elohims. It says, as true religion does not have any idols or images, there is almost no evidence that it existed. When the word of Yahweh was verbally handed down, Father to Son, there was no need for writing. Now we know Adam lived to be many years. I believe it was 930. I do have that. It was 930. And he was able not only to teach his children, but their children, their children's children. It says we would do well to understand this point, that every pagan cult, every sun-worshipping cult is a direct offspring, a counterfeit, if you will, of true religion. Never, ever has true religion ever copied any cult. That is definite. True religion was given to Adam by Yahweh, and you can't go back any further than that. Evil men, not satisfied with the true Elohim, went about creating a false mighty one like unto themselves, a deity to suit their own personalities and their own ways. Hence, Tammuz, the son of the sun god, was born, the perfect counterfeit of the Messiah. I don't know if any of you know the history of Egypt. If you was to actually go back and run a history, as I tried to that night, because I remember reading it years ago in a bookstore whenever I was purchasing some books, and so I had Jeremy get me on the internet and we tried to look for it. I found probably 6 or 7 different stories. The one I read in the book went along the lines of this, that Osiris and Isis, which were sent down from Ra, being the sun, they walked around the face of the earth, and as they walked around the face of the earth became. Green vegetation started as their feet circled the globe. So everything you see came from there. Now in the process, we had jealousy, which was with Set, being Osiris' brother. He was pretty jealous of Osiris for having the privilege of doing that. So what he did was he killed him, and he chopped up his body, and supposedly put it on a carriage, rode throughout the land of Egypt, and threw off a little piece here, a little piece here, a little piece here. Well, behind him in the cart was Isis, picking up the pieces and putting them back together, and supposedly resurrected him just long enough to get his seed. Now remember, this is the Nimrod story also. This is mother's son. Okay, and with that they had a son, and this son was Tammuz. And Tammuz, as we know, he was sent to Canaan, or actually to Rome, I believe it was, to start his father's empire there, which would be Osiris, but in actuality it would go back to Nimrod. Like I say, I looked on the internet for the story. It varied far and wide. Some of the stories said that instead of riding through the land of Egypt, throwing body parts out, he took a boat, was throwing them out in the ocean, but she was following behind, collecting the pieces and putting them back together. Now there is a column that I believe is still standing in Egypt, and they do claim that Osiris's body parts are in the column of that temple that they used to use. One of the things I didn't realize is that there is a war going on for some of these structures throughout the world. I believe the one I seen was actually, I'm not sure, but I think it was in Italy. Italy had come over and taken one of the columns, and Egypt wants their column back. They've even went to the United Nations to try to get it. Well, let's continue on. It says the Canaanite mighty one, Baal, is another variation of the Sumerian son of the sun god Tammuz. But what is important is a common thread found in every one of these occults. They all stem from Nimrod, the mighty hunter, a hunter not only of beasts, but also of true worshippers of the true mighty one. It was Nimrod who originally claimed lineage from the sun. So all the sun teachings that we know of, no matter who they are, what names are, doesn't matter what the governments are out there, all of the countries, all of them have a direct route back to Nimrod. They all followed his establishment. They changed the names of the land, but everything that was done there was established by him. So all false religions were established by Nimrod. That's the reason Satan had no problem taking Joshua to the highest point and telling him, all you see, I can give you. He knew who he was dealing with. He knew who had set all of that up, and he knew the teachings. Even with Joshua, he tried to quote scripture to him, but he did it falsely. Joshua caught him in that. You're supposed to be able to do the same thing. Nimrod's name popped up on the history and traditions of Christmas. Also got this off the internet. It says traditionally most people celebrated December the 25th as the birth of Christ or of Christmas. It said since Christmas is not in the Bible, we have to look further in history to establish its origin. This is prior to the celebration of Christmas, December the 25th, the winter solstice was celebrated in Babylon as the birthday of Tammuz, the sun god. All right, as we just established, Tammuz is Nimrod's son. In Egypt, he was Horus. Okay, Horus was the name of the one that Osiris and Isis had. That was their child. Same story, different language. It says he was in Rome and Persia. In Persia, he was Mritha, the son of righteousness. It says all of these cultures were regarding the so-called Immaculate Conception of the sun god. The basis of this celebration can be traced back to the kingdom of Nimrod. And in such incest relationship began between Beltis, Nimrod's wife, and one of her sons. Tammuz was born. Tammuz was claimed to be the reincarnation of Nimrod, the beginning and the end, and therefore immortal. It says, yet the so-called pagan god of the sun was merely a mortal who was eventually killed by a wild boar. Okay? Immortals cannot be killed by wild animals. It says this is the origin of the mother and child worship. This fable has been the basic of pagan worship on this date, once again, December the 25th, throughout history. It says information can be found in most encyclopedias and dictionary. Many of the pagans' traditions, such as gift-giving, feasting, merrymaking, sunrise services, was incorporated in this new tradition called Christmas. In England, in 1644, Parliament banned Christmas, calling it the profane man's renting day. The Puritans disapproved of the Catholic implications of the Christ Mass and the worldliness associated with this holiday. Even in America, it was once against the law to celebrate Christmas. In 1659, Massachusetts passed a law fining anyone caught participating in this holiday. Throughout New England, Christmas was suppressed by Protestant forefathers. Public schools remained open in Boston on December the 25th until 1870. Because of the Puritan objection to Christmas as being a pagan origin, today few Americans even know that it was ever outlawed in the country. All right. Well, George asked me what I was going to speak about. I told him there were some false teachings that had been going on. They're not only going on here, they're going on all over. I'm going to expose go ahead and show you what they are at this time. All right, there they are there. I know most in this room participate in some of these. Before we get into them, as you notice, I've got that drawn in black. It's all around. I call that the manure pit. You've heard Alex J. speak of a manure pit. Okay, he's told us that at the last two feasts. Manure pit is not the place to be. Do you children know what a manure pit is? Huh? You know what it is? Some do, some don't. Okay. You got little brothers and sisters, right? Right? Huh? You ever helped change their diapers? Huh? You never helped change their diapers? You never seen it? You never smelt one of those diapers? I bet you have. Guess what? That goes in the manure pit. Oh, yeah. Ooh, that's right. That's what the manure pit is. That's what Alex J. taught us it was. I agree with Alex on that. Let's turn over to 1 Thessalonians 5:21. All right, 1 Thessalonians 5:21, we're given something to do here. We're told, prove all things. Hold fast to that which is good. If I ask somebody to come up here right now and prove one of these days to me as being fact and biblical, who would do it? Somebody would come up here and do it? Because I know a lot of people that participate in these days. Verse 22 says, abstain from the appearance of evil. Let's turn over to Romans 12, verse 2. Romans 12:2. We read this. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and the perfect will of Yahweh. 2 Corinthians 13:5. We'll get a little more. I'm in 1 Corinthians. Let's get over to 2. 2 Corinthians 13:5. Examine yourselves whether you be in the faith. Prove your own self. So not only are we to prove all things that we teach, speak, and do, it also says we're supposed to prove them within our own self. Let's turn over to Titus 2. Listening to me, boy? I'll tell you now the reason why I asked the children to set up here. It's not necessarily that they'll understand what I'm saying, but I know for a fact that by them listening, they will take something out of here. We had rented a movie one night, and we declared it was unfit for Dewey to watch. He was about your age. He was about your size. So what I did was, I put him in the little hallway in between the living room and where we were at, where he could see the TV. For 2 hours, he sat there and colored. All right? Didn't say a word, didn't come into the room. But then the one line that was in the movie that you would not want a child to repeat was the only line and the only words he said in 2 hours. And this was not what he needed to hear. It started there, it went down the line. About 3 weeks later, at Tabernacles, my dad brought him to me and told me what he called him. This wasn't the thing to tell my dad. My dad wanted to accuse me of teaching him that. But my dad knew he didn't figure it out on his own. Okay? The movie was Terminator. So if you know what she says to him in the end, you know what Dewey called his grandfather one day when he got upset with him. So that's the reason why I asked the children to set up here. They won't understand it all, but they'll hear it. It'll be in their minds. Titus 2:1. Speak thou things which become sound doctrine. Drop down to verse 7. In all things, show thyself a pattern of good works and doctrine, showing uncorruptness, gravity, sincerity. Verse 8. Sound speech that cannot be condemned, that he is of the contrary part might be ashamed, having no evil to say of you. Verse 12. Teaching us that nigh in unrighteousness and worldly lust we should live soberly and righteously in this present world. That is talking about now, and that's talking about wherever you're standing on any country, regardless of what's being taught and regardless of what continent you're on. If you want to have the blessings of Yahweh, you have to do what he says. And when he says, come out of the world, he means come out of the world. Whenever I ask most of those in the sacred name, give me 20 things that you do different than the Christian world that teachers come up here and talk about all the time and don't say anything good about them. I mean, I've been told by the teachers don't even read their literature. One time there was 5 or 6 teachers told me that. I told them to lay their Bible up on the table. I want to see whose Bible you're carrying. Because I knew there were sacred name Bibles out there. But if you do not have one of those Bibles, you are carrying a manual given to the Christians so that you would benefit from it. Yahweh will use who he wants to bring this information into the world. It doesn't matter who they are or if they follow it. But King James was responsible for the Bible a lot of us carry. And even if you go to the NIV, which I know a lot of you use, you can go back through the history of it. The people that were working on it, they weren't better people in the world. None of them followed Yahweh's laws. None of them used Yahweh's commandments. But still, they brought a manual to use that can teach Yahweh's ways if you will read it and do what it says. Now, going back to what I said earlier about, let's see, well, let's change it over here. Now, I'm going to read the establishment of these days here, and then I'll read what I got here. I will show you which books these come from. We're going to start with this one. This is a book published over at YMCA. Society's present calendar is actually a solar calendar from Egypt, which the new moons are not intended to begin the month. All right, we know this. We go out and look for the moons. You can go out and look for them on any day of the month. And we know it's not the first day of the month. We're out there looking at the moon to establish the first day of the month. It says, our secular calendar completely ignores the moons, which fall anywhere in the month. During any given year, 2 moons may fall within a single month in our calendar. It's a Roman Gregorian calendar. Strangely enough, the word month is derived from moon. Our culture sets months by calendar that completely ignores the moon. Like I say, that's found in here if you want to read it. Now we're going to move to this one. This is one passed out here. So the Egyptians made 2 significant contributions to the fundamental importance found in the present-day calendar. The first was a solar calendar of 365 days. I wonder who they set that up around. Yahweh says, go out, look at the moons. This is a big beginning of months to you. What do the Egyptians do? They go out and look at the sun. We'll make our own calendar. Okay, that's what all of these are based on. These are based on the sun. They're not based on Yahweh's calendar. They also developed a feasible calendar based on the sun with 12 30-day months plus an additional 5 days. Later, the Julian calendar added extra days on alternate months, on alternate 30-day months. The calendar changed in 1582 from the Julian calendar, named after Julius Caesar, to today's Gregorian calendar, named after Pope Gregory. It was discovered that the Julian calendar was 10 days behind true time. It was decreed that what, according to the old calendar, would have reckoned the 5th day of October, actually, becoming the 15th of October. That's how they corrected it. It's in this book here. It'll show you the change. All I did was simply, I think the 4th day was on a Thursday. And if you look at the calendar, the next day was the 15th. That's how they put the 10 days in there. It says the weekly cycle continues uninterrupted. It can be readily proven from history that the days of the week, as we have them, have not changed their cycle. A notable attempt occurred in 1793 when the French government tried a solar calendar of a week of 10 days with 12 months of 30 days. So 5 intercalary days were added each year, but it was abolished by Napoleon. In 1806, the French went back to the Gregorian calendar to be in harmony with the world. Actually, they are in harmony with Egypt. Now I've got a book here that is out of print now that I'm going to read the caption of it. It says, England finally adopted the Gregorian calendar in 1752 when George Washington was 20 years old. It says the modern calendar corrected past inaccuracies by dropping 11 days. Although we, speaking to America, celebrate Washington's birthday February the 22nd, George's actual day of birth was February the 11th because he was born before the introduction of the Gregorian calendar. All right, as you notice up here, I've got birthdays up here. All the other people keeping track of their birthdays this way. What do you think happened whenever those days changed? Every day they called their birthday prior to that point just got wiped out through history. What's going to happen in another 50 years if they say we got another day we need to correct in here? Most of what these children are taught as their birthdays will be wiped out. Once again, back in the encyclopedia and going back to Washington, in 1971, it says Washington's birthday was set up to fall on the third Monday in February. Okay, so the very ones that give you these dates and these calendars move them around as they see fit to fit into what they're teaching. Now I went to the internet once again. Under birthdays, well, actually my wife did. She brought it to me and said, here, you might want this. This is an article that I've got some of their writings on the pyramid, but this article was written in 1959. It simply says, search your Bibles. How many birthday celebrations do you find? A Pharaoh in Egypt celebrates his birthday. Herod, on his birthday, has a dinner, supper. There's only 2 definite birthday celebrations in the Bible. That's the 2 places you'll find birthdays. Now, we know in Job, it talks about his children being in their day, and most will say this is a birthday. I don't have a problem with it. It could be. If it's not, it's another day they set up for themselves. It doesn't really matter. We're going to go over the history of those in a minute. Josephus says, no, indeed, the law does not permit us to make festivals at the birth of our children. Why is that? This is a teaching that's been taught here. It's been taught all over America. I've argued my mom up and down for many years that she doesn't know my birthday. So he goes on to give the history, some of what I just read to you, but one of the things he did mention was that one of the things he mentioned was it's really impossible that Yahweh did not leave us a way for everybody to track their birthdays. Even the calendar that you go by now has a flaw in it, and that flaw is coming up. I believe it's tomorrow. Is tomorrow leap day? Yeah. Okay. Tomorrow. What about a child that's born on that day, going by the calendar of the sun that's been given to you? When's his birthday? Every 4 years? Is that right? Is that biblical? No, not even close. He goes into detail on it. He says, what about the children that are born on this day? He says, isn't it a tragedy that all the other children around him every year, they get to have a birthday celebration, but this one doesn't. He only gets it every 4 years, so he's the odd man out. Now, we know what the world does at high noon on leap day. Anything prior goes back to the day before. Anything after goes back to the day after, which I guess will be the 1st of March. Okay. He also makes the comment here on Yahweh's calendar, the biblical calendar. The numbers there, that's how the Bible actually reads, and even the day of the week. They're numbered. They don't have names. These names, most of them, as you can see, Nimrod's son there on number 4. Most of them are from Babylon. When the children of Israel were there, they adopted a name. Some are of Hebrew origin, I believe. I don't really use those myself. I use numbers whenever I want to talk about Yahweh's calendars. That's the way he did it. He also did days. The only day he named was today. It was Sabbath. Now, any of those days can be discredited simply by this right here. This is a timepiece for establish a day in the country you live in here. It's in many of them throughout the world. We're going to go over the history of some of these. I also went to the encyclopedias or calendars. Went through about 3 or 4. I bought a couple sets. I bought a 1771 set. I wanted history before this country was even established to see what was going on. I went calendar there, and even in 1771, before the country was set up, what it has a calendar, it says the beginning of the day. The British, the French, the Dutch, the Germans, the Spaniards, Portuguese, and Egyptians begin civil day at midnight. The ancient Greeks the Jews, Bohemians, Sicilians, with the modern Italians and Chinese, begin the day at sunset. So the ancient Babylonians, Persians, Syrians, with the modern Greek, begin the day at sunrising. Okay, so even when this country was, before the country was born, there was a calendar out there that was correct. Whenever you look at the calendars that's there, there's only really 5. We've got the Aramaic and the Turkish, the ancient Greece, the Jewish, and the Egyptians. All right, in the 1771 encyclopedias, you will find all those months I just showed you that are of the Hebrew calendar, of Yahweh's calendar. They may not be the right names, but they're in there. That information was available to our forefathers. All right, they also had the Jewish calendar, which is what we're considered using and being, because we keep the Sabbath. Most of the world doesn't understand what a Jew is. They don't understand that it's only a 12th of Israel. Everything you do, my beard, I'm a Jew because of my beard. It doesn't have nothing to do with Israel. Everything has to do with the Jew. A couple of years ago, whenever the Easter season was upon the world, the news had a thing they were going to compare Easter to Passover. So I said, well, I got to see this because I didn't really feel them to be educated enough to speak on the Passover. So I waited till the commercial was over and listened to what he had to say. And the very first thing that they said was, when the Jews come out of Egypt, when Moses led them out, see, they said the Jews come out of Egypt. That's not correct. If the Jews is all that come out of Egypt, the other 11/12 is left there. The world doesn't understand. Even when I was in court, I was accused of being a Jew. And when I asked them to define a Jew, they didn't even know where to start. So I told them they couldn't. Don't ever accuse me of being a Jew again. Also in the 1771 encyclopedias, if you want to look up Passover, it's in there. Like I said, they had the information. If you want to find the Feast of Tabernacles, it's in there. They had it. The only 2 Christian holidays that are in there, were in there at the time, is Easter and Christmas. Those were in there, even though they were spelt a little different than what you're used to. So what we're going to do now is, I showed you earlier Yahweh's feast. We're going to define here what a feast is. We're going to define a feast. We're going to define a holiday. We're going to know the difference. Once again, going back to the 1911, under feasts and festivals, you'll read, a festival or feast is a day or a series of days specifically and publicly set apart for religious observances. All right, that's what a feast is. Where no religion is, there can be no feast. Okay, as religions develop, festivals develop with it. It says some uncivilized tribes, such as the Jugas, the Bengals, the Fusions, and the Anamanese, have been described as having no word for Elohim, no idea of a future state, and consequently no religious ceremonies of any kind. And that's what a feast is. I also went there for a holiday. Oh, one thing. Like I said, under feast, it's in the 1911. It's a set of encyclopedias up there in the office that Elder Tom put up there on the shelf, I guess. There is another line off to the side in the middle of it. Whenever you go through those encyclopedias, if you want to know something about something, that's a place to go. Because under feast, I need to photocopy it all, and I got 6 pages here with me. When you get back to the year and time, bring a lunch. You're going to be there for a while if you read. But I got one line that I highlighted here on the side, and it makes this statement here. It says, the simplest calendar is the lunar calendar. Okay, so that, like I said, that's in the 1911. Now when we go to holidays, we read under holiday. Originally, a holy day. Okay, so that's where the holiday comes from. A festival set apart for religious observance as a memorial or some sacred event of a sacred person, hence a day on which ordinarily work and business cease. If you don't believe these days are feast, ask Jeremy. He'll tell you can't go buy nothing on those days. The world's shut down. Okay, this is not holidays. These are holy days to them. These are feasts. These are feasts to the Christian world. They shut down work. Everybody that works in it, you know it, you get the time off. So it's not that this is a holiday. This is more a holiday. All right, they took the consideration to close the world down during this time of the year. It says in the United States, A legal holiday is dependent upon the state and territorial legislations. It usually begins with the presidents to proclaim the last Thursday in November as a day of Thanksgiving. This makes it only a legal holiday in the District of Columbia and in the territories. Most states make it a general holiday. So understand, when your government sets up a day, it's not really set up for you. If your state doesn't adopt it, then they don't necessarily have to shut down. But they do adopt them, they do like them, and have been for a while. Also in the 9/11, I went and looked up what day was. It says days are distinguished by solar or lunar according to the revolution, accordingly as the revolution is taken relative to the sun, to the stars, and to the moon. Now, if we look at how America starts time, right there, New Year's Day, what do you got to do? You can't go out and see the moon. You can't go out and see the sun. Okay, in the dead of the night. That's when it is, right at midnight. That's whenever their world starts. It's not scriptural. That's how they define a day. That's how a day is set up in this country. I went to encyclopedia once again. We've heard many words come up here given to the Christian. One of the big ones was pagan. Went and looked up what a pagan is. I'll read to you what a pagan is. A pagan is a heathen, one who worships false mighty ones, one who belongs to a race or nation who practices idolatry. When I went to the 1771, under religion, I found this. It says, from the first knowledge that we have of the world, that is to say, for about 5,000 years past, men have blindly searched after the idea of a true mighty one. And by their weakness of discernment, they have fallen into 1,000 errors. Paganism at first covered the whole earth, except for a family alone, which became the flock of Jewish people. This paganism among different nations had different mixtures of idolatry. Moses first made known to the Hebrews the true Elohim and prescribed them his worship, his religion. However, it was not adopted by any other people, not even by their neighbors. All right, so even though Moses had what most people claim they're looking for, it was rejected. Not the ones on a continent on the other side of the face of the earth, but the ones that were right there bordering their cities. All right, I'm going to take a little time now. We're going to go over some of these days, one at a time. Tell you what, before we do, let's do a little more reading. Let's turn over to 1 Corinthians 11:1. Corinthians 11:1, we will read this. Be followers of me. Okay, this is Paul speaking, even as I am of the Messiah. So Paul's telling people, you watch me, you do what I do, who I follow, that's who you follow. 1 Peter 2:21, we read the same thing. Messiah suffered for us, leaving us the example that we should follow his steps. 1 John 2:6, he that says he abideth in him also ought himself walk even as did Messiah walk. All right, so we've been given instructions on what to do. They've just been ignored. That's the problem we always had throughout the history. Like I said, go through the court cases, you'll see the people did not follow Yahweh. These are left here for yours and you and I. Every example of what not to be and what not to do. Like read in 1 Thessalonians, prove all things. If you take a step, it's supposed to be proved. If you're going to give in to one of these holidays, or holy days, as I consider them into Christianity, you're supposed to prove it. So if I ask you to prove it to me, and you participate in one of these, I expect you to have the proof for me. In Jeremiah 10:2, we're told, learn not the way of the heathen. Mark 7:7, we read, "In vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrine the commandments of men." Titus 1:14, "Give no heed to the Jewish fables and commandments of men that turn from truth." Ephesians 4:17, "Walk not as other Gentiles walk, they walk in the vanity of their own mind." All right, we're going to go through some of these days. We're going to look at birthdays. That's kind of a mixed day between the sacred name groups. Some keep them, some don't. We do have a couple mentions of the birthday I talked about earlier. One's in Genesis 40:23. Genesis 40:20, we'll start there. It reads, "Then it came about on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast for all of his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief cupbearer to his office, and he put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker just as Joseph had interpreted in a dream." It said, yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Okay, we all know that Joseph was in prison, and he translated a dream for him, and he told him, when you get out, this is what's going to happen. And he told him, don't forget me. I'm done here. A lot of people have said that birthdays are pagan and not to be kept because they're right here. Somebody dies on the birthdays in the Bible. The only three we got, like I said, if you're going to include Job, we know John the Baptizer died at Herod's. We'll read that one in a minute. We know Job, his children died after feasting in their day. And right here, the cupbearer died. That doesn't prove anything, that the cupbearer died, and so birthdays are illegal or shouldn't be kept. Doesn't prove that at all. The day I was born, somebody died. Okay, the day you were born, somebody died. That has no proof. The proof is in the custom. Who established it? It's right here. This is Egyptian. Pharaoh, see? Says it came about the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday. Okay, he made a feast. It doesn't say Yahweh made a feast. It says Pharaoh made this a feast. What were the children told whenever they were leaving Egypt? Do not follow the Egyptians. What did they do? Brought Egypt with them. Okay, once again, to say that somebody died on these birthdays, and this is why you should leave them alone, not scriptural. Like I say, everybody in the room, when you were born, somebody died on your birthday. Somebody's being born today, somebody's dying today. Let's look at another birthday in Mark 6:17. All right, Mark 6:17, let's read. "For Herod himself had sent and had John arrested and bound in prison on account of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip, because he had married her. John had said to Herod, 'It's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife.' And Herodias had a grudge against him and wanted him put to death and could not do so. Herod was afraid of John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and he kept him safe. And when he heard him, he was very perplexed. But he used to enjoy listening to him. On a tragic day come when Herod on his birthday gave a banquet for his masters and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee." All right, there we have it again. This birthday, Herod, on his birthday, he gave the banquet. Okay, I think whenever you look it up, I think in most of the other translations it says it was a supper feast and not necessarily a daytime feast. When the daughter of Herodias come in and danced, she pleased Herod and the dinner guest. There it is. And the king said to the girl, "Ask whatever it is you want, I'll give it to you." He said, "If you want half my kingdom, consider it yours." But the girl went and asked her mother. All right, mother didn't think a whole lot of what John the Baptizer was saying. So we know what the mother told daughter to ask for. Go tell Herod I want his head on a platter. All right, that way I don't have to listen to him speak against me anymore and what I'm doing. So once again, there's another little place there where the people say, well, look at there, another birthday party, somebody died. Well, yeah, there's another birthday party, and yeah, somebody did die. Like I said, on your birthday, somebody died too. That's going to happen today. There's going to be life given. There's going to be life taken. That's happening right now. Now, before we leave the birthdays, I got a couple questions. One of them is, whenever I explain to people about Noah's Ark, they want to tell me that millions of animals can't go in the ark. It was impossible for this to happen. And I have to tell them that all the animals go back to a single set of ancestors. All right? So do you. Who's your single set of ancestor? Adam and Eve. When was their birthday? Can you tell me what day they had their birthday party on? How did they teach their children to have a birthday party? How would they do that? These two were kicked out of the garden. They weren't too happy at the time. They just give up paradise. There was a curse put on the woman and the man. The woman's curse was to bear children. Eve had first-hand account of this. She knew she was cursed when she had this child. Okay? Down through time, it just becomes a way of life as it is today. I don't hear many women having children say, I'm being cursed. Okay? But Eve understood this. She understood it well. Do you really think she set up a birthday party on that day? I don't think so. Another question I ask people is, you want to have a birthday party for when you're born? Let's turn over to Ecclesiastes 7 too, before we go here. Actually, it's verse 1. We're going to start at verse 1. A good name is better than good ointment. A day of one's death is better than a day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting. What does that say about one's birth? Does it say this is a time to set up, celebrate, throw a party? No, it doesn't. If you're going to read this right here, you're going to say that the death is the one to do that with. How many people you know do that? They want to set up and have a party for the children, once again, and it's children. The Christians tell you, Christmas says, they'll tell you, we know there ain't no Santa Claus. We know it. We pulled his beard off. He doesn't have a beard. We know reindeer can't fly. But for the children, we got to have this little party. Okay? Same thing going on with the birthdays. It's for the children. Now I'm going to bring you the second question. You were baptized. Isn't that considered being born again? And you're born to Yahshua's blood? You're taking a covenant with him. Okay? How many of you throw a birthday party for that? How many of you throw a party for being baptized? How many throw one when you're born? Okay? We're doing it again. This time we're doing it right. We're coming out from under the curse. How many of you do it? I've never been invited to one of those. I never have. I can't imagine why. Seems like to me that would be a good day for throwing a party. All right? Next day coming up, it's going to be an important event in your life is the resurrection. Okay? Guess what? You got to be changed again. Okay? Did your first birthday matter? The day you were born? See, I teach my children there's no difference between a birthday and a day of birth. They're both the same. The following year is not a birthday. You did not come into the world today. You were not born today. All right. I was telling you earlier about the manure pit here. It's enticing. They've got certain key words in there to make it look like it's something you're supposed to be doing. About the nice one up there is Thanksgiving Day. That's got to be. This is Thanksgiving. Hey, the Bible says be thankful. This is a day we can keep, right? Isn't that what it says? Well, let's see what the Bible says about Thanksgiving. I lost my white book. All right, here we go. 1 Thessalonians 5:18. In everything, give thanks. This is the will of Yahweh and Messiah Yahshua concerning you. In everything. Is that the fourth Thursday in November? Does that fall into this category? Fourth Thursday in November, you come together as a nation, you give thanks. See, that's a problem with it. Most people only give thanks on that day. Do you join that celebration? I'll let you answer that question. Psalms 147:7 we read, sing to Yahweh with thanksgiving. Okay? Have you heard these young ones say you're supposed to have a song in your heart at all times? We restrict that to one day, or is it every day? Thanksgiving is every day. The sugar coating there in the manure pit, that's the reason why you keep it. It's because it's sugar coated. It looks good. It's nice. If you read Yahweh's laws, you'll find, I believe, in Leviticus 2:11, Yahweh doesn't take sugar coating on his offerings. You don't put honey on his offerings. Don't bring that up here. Okay, there's no sugar coating here. That's how you fell into the trap. Sugar coating, a couple key words there. I'm going to read an article here that was published in YNCA's newsletter back in January of this year. And the reason I'm going to read it, there's no difference in it being published there or being published here. The general view here is the same view. I know this to be fact. I've been the one putting the papers on the board that this day is pagan, this day is pagan, and every time I put it up there, we got a message over it, so I got a good understanding of what was being taught here. I'm going to read it to you first. Like I said, it's a general view of what's been taught here. I've heard the message. This is just, if I was going to abort and go back to Thanksgiving, it would be this writing right here that I would use to justify it and follow it. This is about the best I've read on it. But let's read it, and then I'm going to troubleshoot it. Does Yahweh limit or set aside times to thank him for his bountiful goodness? Does Yahweh at any time criticize those who sincerely and gladly come to him in thankful praise and honor in times other than his motives, his feasts, his appointed times? Is there any prescription against worship for those who do not yet understand or know the importance of his name, but praise and thank him with the present meager knowledge and faulty understanding? Okay, what would Joshua do? It was at Jerusalem, the Feast of Dedications. It was the winter, and Joshua walked into the temple in Solomon's porch. We'll find that in John 10:22-23. As Joshua was walking into the area known as Solomon's porch at the time of the Feast of Dedication, or the Feast of Lights. Presently it's called Hanukkah. A feast that was annually observed by consent. Everyone had to go. It's set up. If you want to come, come. If you don't, no big deal. In remembrance of the dedication of the altar and the purging of the temple by Judas Maccabees. The cleansing of the temple took place about 168 BCE after the temple had been profaned and the altar defied. The Jews, in remembrance of this terrible time, continue to keep an annual memorial on the 25th day of the 9th month about the beginning of December for 7 days after. Okay, it says it's known as Hanukkah. Note that the Messiah himself did not condemn the Jews for keeping a man-made feast. Okay, to recall the cleansing of the temple and the altar. It became part of Jewish history and continues to be celebrated today. All right, that is correct. It is celebrated today, and it's still out there. Let's continue on. If America as a nation wants to give thanks to Yahweh for his goodness and his blessing, we can in America likewise observe a Memorial Day of Thanks that originally began as a day of thankful praise to Yahweh by those who had not yet learned his true name was Yahweh. It's not the examples in the Old Testament the Old Testament's approval of 4 fasts in Zechariah and the tactic approval of Yahweh in the new of Yahshua in the new allow us to keep a day of thanks in addition to the 7 feast days of Leviticus 23. Are we limited in our desire to give him the thanks he deserves? There is no apparent connection with Jeroboam setting up an admitted replacement for the Feast of Tabernacles. Thanksgiving appears to have begun as a genuine effort to thank Yahweh by sincere, pious believers as early as June. In researching the origin of Thanksgiving, now observed in November, can anyone find any connection with heathen worship? I found none. Rather, there seems to be a sincere group of believers who were grateful for their survival over a winter wherein half of the colony had perished. Nothing we found ties the observance of Thanksgiving to Rehoboam's late feast in the land of Israel. Just as ancient Israel rejoiced in the goodness of Yahweh and added 7 days of praise of worship of Yahweh, we as a nation have a special time like Thanksgiving where we give our Creator thanks and praise? What is wrong with dining with friends and relatives at this special time of thanks and honor to Yahweh? It may give you an opportunity to use Yahweh's name and even open a discussion of one of his 7 commanded feasts. You're supposed to be doing it every day. I don't think you need a special occasion to do that. There is a word of caution, however. Observing the 4th Thursday in November as a day of thanksgiving to Yahweh should in no way supersede or become more important as to overshadow the 7 annual Sabbaths of Leviticus 23. Thanksgiving Day does not stem from paganism, nor does the 4th of July celebration. We should be grateful that we live in America that was founded on biblical principles where we can worship freely our Heavenly Father and give honor to His Son. Let those of Judah observe Hanukkah. We can add a historical day of praise and thank Yahweh each November called Thanksgiving. All right, this was written by Old Dodd, one of my teachers. It's also teaching here. Like I said, one year I put a flyer up there on the board that said Thanksgiving's a pagan day. We got a message for it here. This is the same example that was given that day. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through this, and we're going to troubleshoot it, and we're going to see if this is scriptural or if this is man's ways. One of the first things that's asked is asked twice. Is there any prescription against worship for those who do not yet know or understand the importance of Yahweh's name? Another phrase here says Thanksgiving, which originally began as a day of thanks to Yahweh by those who had not come yet to learn of His true name. Well, I got a question on that. If they hadn't come from it yet, when did they get it? Did they ever catch His true name? I don't think so. If they did, they would have taught it to their children. Let's look at the verse here quoted. There's only one verse that has ever been quoted for Thanksgiving here, and this is it. It said in Jerusalem, the Feast of Dedication, it was in winter, and Yahshua walked in Solomon's temple, and he was on the porch. You'll find that in John 10:22. Let me... I wrote a little side note here on this, and I wrote a question. The question is this the same temple? All right, let's do a little run right quick. Matthew 24, 1 and 2. All right, let's read it. And Yahshua came out of the temple and was going away when his disciples come up to the point out of the temple building to him. And he answered and said, do you see these things? Truly I say to you, not one stone here will be left upon another which will not be torn down. All right, that same temple. John 2:13. And the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Yahshua went to Jerusalem. And he found in the temple those who were selling oxen, sheets, doves, and the money changers' seats. And he made a scourge of cords, and drove them out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen. He poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And to those who were selling doves, he said, take these things away. Stop making my Father's house a house of merchandise. His disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for thy house will consume me. Then the Jews answered him and said, by what authority do you do these things? Who are you to come in here and flip our tables and tear our house down? And Yahshua answered and said to them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days it'll rise back up. The Jews looked at him and said, it took 46 years to build this temple, and you're talking about you're going to raise it up in 3 years. All right, the same temple Yahshua was standing on at dedication. Notice it says in here he was standing at Solomon's porch even when he was there at dedication. Now, if you're standing on the porch of a house, figure it out, you're not in the house. Okay? How do we know he wasn't sitting there observing what was going on? Because this is what he did to the temple whenever he came back to the temple. It looks like to me whenever I read this, and I turn over to reading 1 Corinthians 6:19, where it says, where's the temple? Your body's a temple. He's making a change to them right here. He's changing from one temple to another. Here he says, destroy the temple, and in 3 days it'll raise back up. They rejected his teaching. They didn't understand what he was saying. To them, they're looking at the building sitting here. He's already told his disciples, look at it. The stones are coming down. Not a one of them's going to be left standing. They are coming down, and they were taken down in 70 A.D. Anybody that wants to use the temple as reference that Messiah approved of the keeping of these days, I beg to differ. That temple's gone. It's done away with. The temple is here now. There are people that have told me this is the temple, this building here. I disagree with that. I think the temple's sitting in here. I think the temple's walked through the door. I don't think this is a temple right here. It doesn't have any of the qualifications of the temple that Yahweh gave whenever they were to build a temple. And we know one day Jerusalem is going to rebuild the temple. That is going to come. I've got the newspaper articles. They've already made it clear 10 years ago. We have the stones. We have everything we need to build it. We're waiting on the red calf. That's what they're waiting on. They thought they had it a few years ago. After a few days, it turned, I guess, a blind spot developed on it. I really thought they would dye it and bring it on, but they didn't. I think too many photographers got in there and got a photo of it too quick. All right, let's read a little more. It says, if America as a nation wants to give thanks to Yahweh for his goodness and his blessings, can't we as America likewise observe a memorial day of thanks that originally began as a thankful day of praise to Yahweh? Does not the examples of the Old Testament's approval for the 4 fasts of Zechariah and the tactic approval of Yahshua in the New Testament allow us to keep a day of thanks in addition to the 7 feast of Yahweh? Well, I just happen to have a copy of this piece here. Okay, what we're looking at and what we want to say is, bottom line is, there's other man-made feasts of the Bible. Okay, Yahweh approved them. We can make one ourselves if we want to. We set it up, honor him. We'll be okay. He'll let them do it then. Jeroboam's feast there in 1 Kings, I guess that's the first reference in the Bible as to one. If you read it, let me find my paper with that. If you read about that in 1 Kings 12, 28 to 32, if you want to write it down. I've got the verses up there if you want to write them down and study them later. You'll find he moved the Feast of Tabernacles to the 8th month on the 15th day. All right. He decided that he'd do a little bit more than Yahweh. He knew a better time to do it, so let's do it this way. He also chose to do what Aaron did at the foot of Sinai. He decided instead of building one golden calf, we're going to build 2. All right. If one was good, 2's better. Now, we know that doesn't have anything to do with it. And nobody, I haven't never heard anybody teach that was a way to do anything, but it is a man-made feast in the Bible, and we'll throw it in there just for that. If you look under the second one there, we got King Hezekiah. Right under King Hezekiah, in 2 Chronicles 30, 21 to 27, basically what it says is King Hezekiah and the whole assembly kept another 7 days after the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Okay, once again, going through the same thing. Temple's being brought back. We're happy. Matter of fact, this is a big reunion going on here, if I'm not mistaken. The tribes are coming in for this reunion. Like I say, you can read it in 1 Chronicles. All right, so it says that after the unleavened bread here, they kept another 7 days. All right, here's the unleavened bread they kept. Keep another 7 days just means we pick up the 22nd and we move on to the 28th. Nothing wrong with that. We've all extended our feast time. Some of us by even going down to Cisco at a later time whenever they celebrate. I think they keep it a little different than we do. We go down there, like I told most people, I go down there for Tabernacles. I just got done with Tabernacles. I go down for a revival. All right, I've stayed behind even here after Tabernacles was over. I'm 1 year with the Virgin Island guys. We spent, I think, a couple days afterwards recording a little music. All right, nothing wrong with that. If you can afford to take a few extra days and you want to take it off, that's fine. But don't declare it to be kept throughout the generations. That's where we run into a problem. These guys were setting up to keep throughout generations. All of these have to do with the temple. And like I said, the temple is gone. It's not there. You are the temple. Brother Matt Nesser got sick. All right, we all set up a day to fast for him. Not all of us, but a lot of us did. If you did it, guess what you fasted for? You fasted for temple. That's the same thing they set up here. Okay, if you set up and fasted for anybody that's been sick or anything, you fasted for a temple. It's that simple. Let's move down to the next one. 3. And after 9:20, we do the Feast of Purim. Same thing. On the 12th month and 14th, 15th day, they set up a feast there. Once again, their lives in jeopardy, and they were happy to be done with it. Okay, the 4 fasts of Zechariah. You read those, Zechariah 8:19. There was 4 fasts set up. You can read it, like I said, Zechariah there, but they had one set up on the 4th month and the 9th day. One was set up on the 5th month and 10th day. One was set up on the 7th month and the 3rd day. And one was set up on the 10th month and the 10th day. Now, Yahweh did accept these fasts from these people, but not without them being worried about it. Read the history on it, and you'll see. He asked them a question. For the 70 years that you did this, did you do it to me? Even to me. Okay? So he asked him a little question, give him a little doubt there to think about, but he did finally accept it, and they taught it down to their generation. And of course, the Feast of Dedication, we just went over that. Now, just give you all times when these feasts were. Dedication was on the 9th month on the 25th day. Did you notice how all these were set up? Every one of them was set up here with this moon. Every one of them followed Yahweh's calendar. There was no variance. That's the problem these days. They do not. I was going to put this up when we're talking about birthdays, but I'll show it to you now. All right, there's the most commonly known birthday in this country. It would vary if you go overseas to other countries. You have to change your whole holidays. I run a timeline the last 5 years of when this birthday was celebrated by the world here. Out beside it, I put down Yahweh's calendar, his time. This is when those days were according to the calendar of the moon that you all go out and look at for each month. If you've seen the moon, you verified that month again. In the year 2000, according to Yahweh's calendar, the date was 9/29. If you went out in 2001 and spotted it, the date was 10/10. If you went out in 2002, it was 10/20. 2003, 10/1. 2004, which is this year coming up if the moon's spotted by how we have it marked on the calendar, the date by Yahweh's calendar will be 10/13. I got a question. What day is Christmas? To the ones that want to keep Christmas, what day is it? There we go. Thanksgiving. This one here applies to some in this room. Some keep this date. I got a question for you. When's Thanksgiving? All right. Is it November 23rd, 22nd, 28th, 27th, 28th? That's when you did it. If you did it all these years, look at Yahweh's calendar. 8/27, 9/7, 9/23, 9/3, 9/13. What day is Thanksgiving? We're given a calendar. If you go with Egypt's calendar, this is the way it is. By the way, this is called a movable holiday. This was movable. At our convenience, we'll move it where we want to. What you find is if you put Yahweh's calendar beside any holiday that the world gives you, they're all movable. There's not one that's stationary. Only his way is stationary. It is the only way. Well, a lot of charts, so you don't have to worry about that. No more charts. You just got a manure pit to look at now. You can figure out how deep you're in it. All right, Elder Don closed out this article. And in the end, he said, let those of Judah observe Hanukkah, and we can add a historical day in praise of thanks to Yahweh's November called Thanksgiving. I once again went back to some of his writings and teachings. I wanted to see if that was really the way he felt. I never really thought he would ever say that, according to a phrase that they say over there about people who wear tassels. All right, they got a phrase over there. They call them wannabe Jews. I never thought he would write something like that because of that phrase. Well, you know what? I got one for somebody that wants to keep that. You want to be Christian? Is that what you want to be? That's where it came from. No, if you got called names, it's going to come back at you. If that's the game you want to play, you'll reap what you sow. So you be careful what you call somebody. Understand, Brother Hector read Psalms today, 24. What did it say? Opening verse. The earth is Yahweh's, all it contains. That's everything you see. That's every religion you see out there. It's all his. He'll do with it what he wants to. The thing you've got to be thankful about is that you're not one of them. You know a little bit more. He's brought you a little further away. We're not to bash these people. That's what happens when you want to bash. The bashing will come back to you. You will reap what you sow. Now let's get back to this Hanukkah. This is one of their books over there that they publish. Is there something beyond Christianity? I was working over there whenever this was published. But I want you to listen to this right here. Let those of Judah observe Hanukkah. Now we got a question here. We are trying to acquire information on how we can use and learn to teach our children about Hanukkah. Do you have anything you could email, or could you email me back where to look for something on your website? Now here's the response over there. I'm not necessarily saying that he wrote this. I don't know exactly who wrote it, but when they publish a book, somebody in the organization there wrote it if he didn't. It says, we closely adhere to Yahweh's holy days found in Leviticus. Feast of Purim and Hanukkah we do find mentioned in the scriptures as observed by the Jews, but we don't find them commanded by Yahweh. In teaching the children, we're instructed to teach the children his ways, his laws, and his commandments, not man's traditions. If we start trying to teach our children to do what has been the tradition of men, our children may get a little bit confused, and when children see adults, when children and adults alike see Jews wearing the kippas or the yarmulkes, the prayer shawls, during Purim or Hanukkah, the next step for many is to start doing these things, taking them further away from Yahweh. All right? One of these is not right, but they're both published at the same place. And like I say, this is general attitude here too. I've heard it. But in the writings there, something's not right. You can't say both. Like I say, I never thought I'd see the day that he would actually say that, but he has. But that goes against what they teach over there. They go against themselves on that. Now let's all turn over to 2 Timothy 3:16. Here we'll find out why we carry this book. It says, Scripture is given by inspiration of Yahweh, as profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, and for instruction in righteousness. That's what the book's for. If you can't prove what you believe, and it's not a book, you're supposed to throw it away. What you do should be recorded in a book. If you teach something different, you teach a false message. Now, in the article, a lot of people have associated Thanksgiving with the Harvest Festival. There's a question asked here, is there anything pagan about it? Is there anything wrong with this? Is there anything wrong with having family and friends that don't keep Yahweh's ways? I got a question for you. Is there anything wrong with you bringing them to the Feast of Tabernacles? Since they're so open-minded and they hadn't yet come to the truth, but they're going to end up coming here anyway, why not bring them with you to Tabernacles? Why don't you tell them come to Tabernacles? I sat down and had Thanksgiving with you last year. Come with me this year. I'll show you the real harvest festivals. See, that's the problem with it. It is rooted in pagan. It does stem from paganism. Okay? Thanksgiving is a harvest festival to the world that has rejected Yahweh's days, his feast days. Correspondence course here, lesson 13, Feast of Tabernacles. If you don't think it's a harvest festival, I'll read you a little bit out of it. Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Weeks coincide with Israel's two spring grain harvests. The Feast of Tabernacle follows the fall harvest of the fruits of grapes and the olives. The fall harvest marked the end of the growing season in Israel's agricultural. Israel celebrated the Feast of Tabernacle as a harvest festival as well as a commemoration of the wilderness wandering. Hence, it is certain that Yahweh also considers the feast to be a festival of thanksgiving as well as commemoration. There's a lot more in here that I've highlighted that you can get and read. Just one more place I do want to read one more little section out there. Like I said, there's several places I could go and just be all over the harvest with. It says, Yahweh's will as a new covenant Israelite, pray without ceasing, giving thanks for everything. Okay, we read that. I read it to you a while ago about Thanksgiving. That's in 1 Thessalonians 5. It says, his people are urged to come boldly unto the throne of grace, that they may obtain mercy and find grace in the time of need. Okay, Hebrews 4:16. This is expected in daily life. But when are Yahweh's people closer to the throne of grace than when they are assembled for the Feast of Tabernacles? What could people more unified in prayers of thanksgiving and requests for material blessings, protection, and guidance? Okay, that's what we ask. When can people be more unified in prayers of thanksgiving and requests for material blessings, protection, and guidance than the Feast of Tabernacles? You want to ask me, is Thanksgiving November, the 4th week in November, pagan? Yes, it is. Okay, it has no meaning to the Creator. And it will never be set up by Him. All you got to do is read your literature. All this that I'm telling you come from these books. Most of them are printed here. All of these will tell you. Okay, there's a couple I got here that's actually over from YMCA. If you read your material, you would know all of that. Problem is, you give your money, that's what your money goes to, and most of you don't even know what material says. That's the sad part. It'll only take you about a couple weeks to read it all, if you tried to read it all. I've got the history of Thanksgiving here from all of the encyclopedias. It'll tell you. You can go to any one of them. It'll tell you it's the Harvest Festival. There's no question about it. It'll tell you who started it. Abraham Lincoln's the one that actually declared it a Thanksgiving Day, even though all the presidents did it up until this time. He was the one that gave it the actual fourth Sunday, or the fourth Thursday in November, actually. I think I've been saying that wrong for a while here. Has a little thing in here about a woman, Miss Sarah Josepha Hale. She's the one that went to him, and he listened to her, and by talking to her, he wouldn't put it in. I found the history on this woman one time, not even looking for her, probably 10 years ago, and in there what I found was this woman for 30 years was all in the White House in the president's faces trying to get this done. Most of the presidents kicked her out, told her to get out of here, don't even bother coming back. But Lincoln did. Lincoln was a ladies' man. He listened to her, and he did it for her. Okay, but prior to that, all the other presidents kicked her out. They told her to quit nagging and get out of the White House, and you're not welcome back. But he went ahead and went in. Lincoln also allowed his wife to hold seances in there. Mary Todd was a witch. She practiced witchcraft in the White House, and there were seances in there where she did try to talk to the dead. Okay, so this is the man you're following if you want to follow this setup. One at a time, prior to it being set up right here, they tried to move it up a week. And why would they try to move it up a week? Things is going so good down here. Well, it was real simple. The president thought we could raise revenue for Christmas if we give you another week shopping before Christmas. All right, didn't pan out. Didn't pan out the way they wanted it to, so they brought it back down. But that's what Thanksgiving is to the world. The very day after Thanksgiving, during their little 4-day run that they're shut down on, the very next day is the busiest shopping day for Christmas. The whole world runs out there to do that. I'm going to read one more thing from one inserts from these books that I had up here. This kind of sums it up. It says, we can worship on the day we choose and find it useless. Yahweh is to be worshipped only on the day He tells us and in the manner that He tells us, and the manner that He has revealed to us. Anything else is disobedience once we know the truth. Yahweh is seeking only those who are willing to make permanent change in both their worship and their lives to please Him. Keep in mind, Yahweh says these are His set times, Leviticus 23. But it is man introducing his own festivals and his perversion or changing of Yahweh's times set up that Yahweh despises. He says He hates man's feast, and even though they are in His honor, He will not hear your voice. Almighty Yahweh makes the rules. We abide by the rules if we want to be in His kingdom. Going our own way, doing what only appeals to us, has no value to our Creator. We must not neglect the new moons. Moons are a sign. They set up the day for the proper time of worship that's properly to Him. It says, church secular holidays, such as Halloween, All Saints' Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and Valentine's Day, come during the year, irrespective of the moon. These holidays are in the cold winter season. Yahweh's feasts are seasonal, and at a pleasant time of the year, they all take place in the cool spring or the fall weather. Well, if you paid attention to what I just read, said Halloween, All Saints Day, Christmas Day come in the harsh time of the winter. Guess what? Thanksgiving is in between these days. We forgot to add that in here. The writers did whenever this was wrote. If you're going to include Halloween in the harsh season, Thanksgiving follows it. They didn't have a reason, I think, to put that in there because they justified Thanksgiving. If you don't believe America is Egypt, look at the back of your dollar bill. All right? Egypt's all over it. You don't got to go to Egypt to get Egypt. They'll bring it to you. I'm more than happy to give it to you. But there it is right there. That's a whole other message itself. Now, I've got those days up there. We'll do a quick run through a lot of Easter. I think everybody here knows about Easter. The thing about a lot of these days is it's facts that most of these days have been participated in here on this campground. Okay. Even Christmas, that's been participated. There's been dabbing it here. New Year's Day. Zach Bernard, where are you at? Zach Bernard come over to my house about 3 or 4 years ago on New Year's Day. It's also the Sabbath. It's 11:40 at night. Me and Christina's laying in the bedroom. All of a sudden, TV's on, computer's fired up, radio's going, every little electronic device known to man is rocking in the house. I come out, what are you doing? This is Yahweh Sabbath. Oh, it's New Year's Day. Is that right? I told him, what did I tell you? You remember? No, he doesn't remember. I'm going to tell him again. Why don't you listen again since you didn't remember? I told Mr. Zach that if it's New Year's Day, going outside and bring in a tree with some leaves on it. Well, it's pretty cold outside. He didn't want to go outside. So I made him shut it all off. Their excuse for doing this, when we asked them, was, oh, they're doing it over on the campground. See, they were ready, whenever I rejected them, they were ready to run back to the campground. That's the setup going on here. The toast, the champagne was ready, the toast was ready, TVs were tuned in. This is Yahweh Sabbath, mind you. It's going on over there. There's a couple elders doing it. Oh, well, there we go. Let's do it because a couple elders are doing it, okay? So I asked him a simple question. And it wasn't just Zach Bernard, it was a whole gang of them. I'm not sure who all were. I know Dewey was in the picture. He's not here. Ruben was in the picture. Who else, Zach? You remember? Were you there, Ben? You might have been. All right, where's Ted's boys? I know y'all were running in the group, too. All right, possibility one of y'all was there. That was their excuse. A couple elders are, don't be telling them what to do. That's their excuse. They're doing it over there, so we can do it, too. Well, I asked them a simple question. If Joe wants to go jump off the cliff back there, are you going to jump behind it? Yeah, they told me they would. Yeah, we'll do that. But you know what? They're all sitting here, so they didn't. They were saying one thing, doing another. That was their justification of it. Valentine's Day. Let's do have a little talk of that because there's a little something rooted in paganism here that I want to been arguing with you about another 10 years on this one too. It has to do with the symbol of Valentine's Day. Once again, I'm going back to your words. I'm going to read what you got wrote on Valentine's Day. I've argued the heart. I've prevented the heart from being decorations in the tabernacle. The one that basically fought me the hardest on it. I'm fixing to read you something from his words. He wrote this. Why are big red hearts associated with the day of Nimrod? Why are big red hearts associated with the day of Nimrod is honored as a mighty Baal of the Phoenicians and Semites? The answer is really not much of a surprise. The Romans borrowed this symbol from the Babylons. Okay, well that makes sense. The symbol come out of Babylon. We know that's where Nimrod established his kingdom. In chapter D, the word for heart is Baal. All right, we know Baal's a pagan idol. It says the heart Baal was merely a symbol of Nimrod, the Baal, or the Baal of Babylonians. Can we see how all these paganistic concepts are intertwined? They are made up of local and even borrowed from fairy tales. Now that comes out of the book I referenced earlier, The Two Babylons of Hislam. Over here it says, no wonder the pagans commemorate their hero hunter, Nimrod, or Baal, by sending one another on February the 14th, heart-shaped token symbolizing his love. Okay, Nimrod loves you. He wants you to go down and buy hearts and send them to your girlfriend, okay? Nimrod doesn't care too much for Yahweh, but he's looking out after you. All you got to do is go buy them. He wants you to. Now here's a closing of this article. It says it's time to start exposing all these foolish pagan customs to teach what the Bible says. The Bible says, come out of her, my people, that you might not take of her sins and not receive her plagues. Did you read what he said? It's time to start exposing these foolish pagan customs and teach what the Bible said. Once again, the very one that wrote this is the one that will fight me the hardest on this. Okay? If you are going to write and teach for Yahweh, I don't care who you are, where you stand, you better teach what's in his book. Otherwise, you will trap yourself. You have no option. When it comes to truth, untruth will not go. That's all I'm going to say on Valentine's Day. The heart is a pagan symbol. It is set up for Nimrod. It doesn't matter how you want to use it. It's just like Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a festival to the pagans. 4th of July. A lot of people like this one. This is another good one. Once again, we got vets living on the street. But we can spend billions of dollars shooting fireworks show, gathering America together, and all this is a good time. We're not really concerned about the vets that have been over there and put their life on the line for the freedom that you enjoy. I don't see justification for it. Anniversaries. Whenever I got married, one of those come up. I told my wife one rule only. Don't ever bring me a pagan day. We went out, we found the moon, we seen it, we counted the days till we got married. The date is 11/7. That's the date I was married. The 11th month on the 7th day. That is according to Yahweh's calendar. Give my wife one rule. Don't ever come to me expecting acknowledgement of anniversary. If you want me to acknowledge it, you better have the right day. Well, guess what? First year, she goes out and then watches the moon. I mean, y'all know that. You've seen her out there. She knows how this thing works. No problem. We got it figured out. First year, she come and told me happy anniversary. I got it figured out. Coming up in a few days. Oh, is that right? Well, prove it to me. Go ahead. See, you got it. She went to the calendar. I had a calendar hanging up on the wall. I had it hanging up. All moons were on there. She wanted to start counting and show me. She started at 12. Count backwards. I said, no. Hold up. You don't ever count backwards when you try and track time. Count forward. She ran into a problem before she got there. She didn't account for this month right here. See, counting backwards, she could put right on it. Okay? But when she counted forward, there was 2 moons in July of that year, turning it into a 13th month year. So when she started counting, her anniversary had actually already came. She was actually fixing to find a month later. You know what she said to me? I'm not getting nothing now, Ma. I'm not going to get nothing. You know what I said to her? Only got one rule. What's the rule? Find the right day. Trust me, 4 years, she's found it. She only missed it once. And this is what I was telling you. It's this 13th month, even on the birthdays, that will keep the children. If you have a child born this time, it only comes around every couple of years. And all children cannot find their birthday according to Yahweh's calendar. Even anniversaries, had we got married at that time, it would have been impossible to find them. That would have been out. But we don't throw parties for the anniversary. It's between her and I. Got one more thing I want to go over on the birthdays. Like I said, I told my children, whenever I come to the realization that this isn't the way we should be doing this, I told my children that we're not going to do it anymore. The day that you think your birthday is, a day doesn't exist. We really don't know when it is. We hadn't went and got it. It was actually the birthday of Reuben that made me even start thinking about it, looking at it. I knew something was wrong. Reuben was a baby when he come to his first feast. He wasn't real old. Yet the very next year, at the same time, his birthday was next to the last day of Tabernacles. I said, something ain't right here. Something's not happening. So I looked at it to see what it was. That's what I found. Keep your time wrong. That's simply what it was. The next year, I noticed his birthday was the second day in Tabernacles. Okay? But yet, whenever I brought him for the first time in his life, his birthday, Tabernacles, he'd already been born when Tabernacles got here. So what I did was, I didn't remember exactly what time he was born. I did know it when he was born. I've told him most of his life that he doesn't know when it is, and that his birthday is somewhere around Tabernacles. That's all he can tell you. He can tell you October the 2nd as a world date and what goes on, all of the documents you got to give to the world, but he will not tell you that is his actual date of birth. So today I'm going to tell him what his date of birth is. I forgot myself. I asked my mother if she remembered. She thought it was atonement, but it wasn't atonement. Atonement is when we brought him home. He was 2 days old then. So I went back to the old newsletters up in the office, up in the archive, and I had to go back and find the moon. Found the moon spotted September the 25th. Everybody who's seen the moon, I know them. Miss Sarah Hubble back there witnessed the moon for my child being born. So did Boy Wilkes. So did Eugene and Violet Rogers. Okay, I just found out that Violet passed away here earlier. I know them. They're good people. But I take these people's word that they seen this moon whenever they said they did. So going by that, we set atonement as October the 4th. there was a service held. I have a report here of the service. So it comes down to the bottom line of when Reuben was born. His birthday is the 7th month of the 8th day. That is his birthday. That is really when he was born. But like I said, I told the kids we're not going to put any emphasis on this. As a lot of people say they don't have a birthday party, what I told them was simply this: we're not going to wait until your birthday to buy you what you need or want. Whenever you need it, I will buy it. When you want it, I will look and see if I want to buy it. Now, it comes that way. I told them we're not going to wait till October to buy you a bicycle when we're getting ready to go into the winter season. It just doesn't make sense. Let's do it in the fall, in the spring, whenever you can have the whole summer to ride this bike. And once again, you got to be careful what you say, because about 3 weeks ago, he went bike shopping. All right, winter's about over. It cost me a little money 3 days ago. I think we got it in Thursday. He got his bike. Okay, I could have held that bike till October of this year to give it to him, and he would be bikeless. But no, he has it now. He will enjoy it now while the weather permits and not on his birthday. So when you want to set up a little celebration for your children or your wife, you can do it according to Yahweh's plan. You just might have to teach a little different than what the world does. With that, I'll say Yahweh bless you.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Delwin, for that message. Without a doubt, you have taken a lot of time for your preparation, and I'd say that you probably prepared yourself better than many, many brothers that I've seen come up here. I don't think you left much doubt in our minds that maybe some of us still aren't perfect. I think I knew that a long time ago for myself, but, you know, the only one who walked this earth was perfect was Joshua. We still have a long way to go, but I think some of the things you pointed out are worth consideration for sure, and I think that there's without a doubt some of us are doing some of these items you pointed out here. We could have some very disappointed grandchildren. I could see that in a hurry, but we appreciate it, and I think the things you had to say were very worthwhile. Friends, this time, if you'll stand, I'm going to call on Deacon Delwin Wilson to come up with the closing prayer and a blessing on the meal.
All bow our heads. Father Yahweh, we come before you once again. We praise your great name for many